has just signed a directive banning transgender military recruits. This took place just this evening. So Trump directed on Friday for the military to not move forward with an Obama-era plan that would have allowed transgender individuals to be recruited into the armed forces. Furthermore, he's also in this memorandum banning treatments and regimens for transgender individuals currently serving in the military. So no longer will they have the medical health care that they need. Also, he is directing the Departments of Defense and Homeland Security to determine how to address transgender individuals currently serving based on military effectiveness and lethality, unitary cohesion, budgetary constraints, applicable law, and all factors that may be relevant. The White House official who briefed reporters on the memo on Friday evening declined to say whether transgender troops would be allowed to remain in the military under those policy guidelines. So there's still a lot of stuff as of yet to be determined, but that is what they are calling for. So this signaled that the administration was returning to the military's pre-2016 policy under which no transgender individuals were actually allowed to serve openly in the armed forces. That was something that we had been moving away from because Barack Obama signed a policy that was initially approved by the Defense Department that would allow trans individuals to openly serve in the military. So that is being scratched out. Now, when pressed, the White House offered no guidance at the time as to how the ban would be implemented. And so that leaves transgender service members, of which there are thousands, wondering about their future in the military. Obviously, this is a breaking story. We're just getting the details right now, but I want to get an initial reaction from both of you. We both were pretty disheartened when Alexa came running in and handed me the story. This is not the sort of breaking news you want to get.
So what day is it? It's Friday.
Today's Friday.
It's Friday. It's a news dump story. He just wanted to do it. He gets a signal, then he goes over to Camp David and he oversees handling the hurricane. And this goes with every other thing. We should have a whole segment dedicated to news dumps on Friday by Trump. Trump's dumps.
Hey, I'm for it.
Trumpy dumpy.
Today. I'm for it.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Yep.
So that's my initial reaction is this is BS as we all knew it was going to be.
Right.
There's no clear policy really other than from now on it's nothing.
Right.
What do you think, Ambria?
I mean, I agree. It's empty. It's empty, like most of the things that he promises to his base, and I think that's who this message is for. If you want to increase military effectiveness, how about we figure out why our ships are crashing into everything every 2 weeks? Like, let's address an issue that is actually an issue, right? Like, this isn't an issue.
Yeah. So one of the things that we covered on the show a couple days ago, maybe last week, was someone reported how much it would cost to replace these transgender military members, and it was way more than it would cost every year to give them the kind of medical treatment that they were, ostensibly going to be the beneficiaries of staying in. And so this seems like a BS stopgap to just say, okay, from now on, no more. Now, one thing you want to pay attention to in what Grace just said was the study they're going to do about the effectiveness and lethality of existing trans soldiers. And I want that report to be made as public as possible, because already in order to serve period, you have to pass certain standards.
Right.
And if you pass those standards, you're allowed to participate as a soldier, as according to the research that I did for the stories when we covered them before. So I want those studies to be made as public as possible so they can eat their words when they discover, to no one's shock, that there is no, as other people have reported additionally, that there is no disparity in effectiveness. And an instance of a report of a super lethal trans soldier.
Yeah, so this is what I think is really important. When it comes to something that maybe you're unfamiliar about, you can always combat ignorance with education. And there's a really cool piece from the Air Force Times on a trans service member named Logan Ireland, who's been only very recently open about his trans status. So for years he was serving in the military and his service members didn't have any idea. And then because of the law that the policy that Obama was trying to implement, he decided to come out. And basically there's this really just cool piece on him in the Air Force Times, which is pretty unbiased when it comes to, they have no, I mean, I guess they do have a skin in the game, but they just came out to support this guy and other people like him who still didn't want their names in the publication. Logan was one of the few guys in the article, or women, that said that, yeah, you can publish my name, because everyone else like, oh, I've been serving covert for a number of years. I don't want to ruin that now because it looks like that could really fuck things up for me. So just educate educate yourself, read about these people who are serving to protect us so that we have our freedoms, it just makes me so upset. Educate yourself on this. I know it's so easy to point to things like it's a mental illness, like how people were saying about homosexuality just decades or so back, and I know that sexuality is not the same as sexual identity. I'm not equating the two, but I'm just saying that it's not the first time that information to make people feel othered, a population that you don't really know about, you'd be like, oh, the mental illness. It's so easy to pin that on someone. Educate yourself before you write that in the comment section below, please.
And it's going backwards for a political reason and not a logistical one.
Yeah.
That's what's so frustrating about it. It's signaling, it's whistling, it's another thing that Trump can say to his base. I'm with you, whatever you guys want. But you need to look no further than the response from everyone when he randomly in a tweet dropped the idea of this in the first place, which was every major branch of government really saying, it's not a problem, I don't know why he's making it one. Or doing the same cowardly approach, which is not really saying anything, but not agreeing with him either.
Right. Yeah.
Watch The Young Turks commercial free, download it or stream it, watch it anywhere you like at tytnetwork.com/join.